Kumar, looking at Ford again, seem to be, you've done well initially with Figo, you've done well with now with Ecosport, but there are just these what I call one-trick ponies, in the sense that one model fantastically successful, and the other segments really were a lot of gaps. The SUV segment, the bigger SUV segment, for example, seems to have been neglected. Endeavour, it's just trundling along very small numbers. You have got newer models all over the world, and the sense one gets is that it's a little slow getting those to market. So what is the issue? I mean, it seems to be everything done in cadence, or is it a question of just sequencing launches in Ford strategy? Or why does it take so long to bring these products to the market?
So the biggest segment in the Indian market is the B segment. It is more than 30% of the market now. It is growing faster than the rest of the market. We expect it to grow to about 2 million units by 2020.
So that's where concentration is?
So we're very focused on that, as we've demonstrated first with Figo, then with the Ecosport, now with the Figo Concept, and also Fiesta playing a very key role, a small role, but a very key role in that segment. So we're very, very focused on that segment for this market. But as you know, we have a very capable SUV that's played a very key role in this portfolio. And we will continuously study this and broaden our portfolio where we see good business opportunities.
There are opportunities above the B segment, and even from perhaps a brand point of view, because with the B segment you're seen as a bit too mass. Do you think there's a worry that Ford will kind of lose a bit of premiumness, and you'll be really fighting with, let's say, other brands which are operating at margins which are difficult to compete with? So just to kind of give a sort of premium feel to the brand, don't you feel you need slightly, let's say, higher segment models in the portfolio?
So we don't necessarily equate premium to the size of the vehicles, because as we've shown in the Ford Figo concept, that the B segment vehicles should not have to trade off premiumness for the sake of affordability. And same goes for EcoSport. It is a B-size vehicle, but those customers feel, and it is a very premium vehicle in this marketplace. Again, it comes down to scale. The market is pretty much focused on sub-B and B volumes. And if we see volumes and opportunities in bigger vehicles that provide enough scale for us, certainly we'll look at those opportunities.
So the sense one gets is you don't want to be distracted by, let's say, or tempted by segments which, okay, they are there and you'd like to get into. So the sense one gets is you really want to concentrate on what the core of the Indian market is.
Our business all around the world is very focused always on customer needs. So we provide cars and SUVs and trucks that meet the needs of the customer. So our business plan, our product plan always starts with the customer. So the biggest demand from a customer perspective in India is the B segment, and that's why we're so focused on it.
I just want to touch upon safety, and you've seen these NCAP results.
Right.
Obviously, it's caused quite a stir over here. 0-star ratings for a lot of the cars, including the Figo. So I just want to get your sense on, let's say, safety in markets like India where there is no real regulation. Should it be the responsibility of the OEM, or sometimes the customer doesn't want to pay for a lot of safety, so some people don't offer it? So it's a tricky one, and it's a very emotional subject as well. So with Ford, obviously you do want to give a lot of safety in the cars, but there's a cost to that as well. So how do you balance that out? And clearly with the Figo, structurally it did fairly well, but it still didn't score because of the lack of airbags.
So we do offer airbags on that vehicle. The key here is quality, green, safe, and smart. Those are our 4 brand pillars. So safety is very, very important to us. And we meet all regulatory requirements in all markets wherever we operate. And we have very rigorous internal safety standards that we adhere to. And the Figo meets those standards. As you mentioned, it did very well structurally in this test. The key here is whenever there's a review like this, we monitor it, which we will, and we'll work with the key stakeholders to look at it and study it.
But in terms of cost versus safety, obviously, if you put too much of safety in it, is going to put the price up and customers may not buy it. So how do you balance that out again when there's no regulatory kind of, let's say, requirement to push you to do it?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the way to balance would be to set up a minimum threshold for safety standards. And we're very clear on those standards for our vehicles around the world. And of course, we must meet all the regulatory requirements, and we meet both of those criteria.
Right. Just coming to a bit on technologies,
Sure.
I want to touch on petrol versus diesel in terms of technology. Europe, we are moving to Euro 6, which I think is going to push the price of diesel up, perhaps even reduce fuel efficiency to meet the tougher emission norms.
Right.
Petrol is making a comeback. The EcoBoosts won a lot of awards, a good example of petrol really fighting back. So globally, I just want to understand, where do you see the two fuels going, and what's really the outlook from it from a, let's say, customer preference, regulatory standpoint. So these two fuels, I mean, what's really the outlook for it?
The key here is, it's a very complex issue. It involves the pricing for the two fuels by market, because the relative prices between the two fuels can vary wildly market to market. It's a regulatory issue as well. How does each country regulate each one of those fuels? So our strategy is to be ready and provide the customers the choice. So we'll be ready with the diesel technologies, with the EcoBoost technologies, and with hybrids and plug-in hybrids and battery electric vehicles. So to be ready to give the customers the choice. So whichever country the customer happens to be in, if it is more beneficial for them to use a petrol vehicle, we'll have the technology to be there with a petrol vehicle or with a gas vehicle or with a diesel vehicle. And we're designing our platforms and our powertrains so that we can democratize this. So our platforms can have HEVs in them, BEVs in them, and plug-in hybrids, and the other two fuels as well.
Right, and on petrol, especially with your Fox, your EcoBoost engine, is this now the way forward, and do you think we will see the end of natural aspiration and forced induction is the way forward, because you've achieved incredible results from a 1-liter engine?
Yeah, the 1 liter has been an absolutely fantastic engine for us. It's won International Engine of the Year 2 years in a row, provides great fuel economy and power. And our take rate, our installation of EcoBoost year over year is increasing quite dramatically. And I think it'll continue to increase. Does that mean an end of natural aspiration? I don't think so, because it is a technology that provides great fuel economy and great power, but there will still be room in smaller vehicles, in lower end vehicles for naturally aspirated vehicles, for naturally aspirated engines.
And looking at transmissions, you've
Sure.
bet big on twin clutch, even in let's say lower end cars like the Fiesta. And
Right.
What's your outlook on transmissions? Because in India we see automated manual transmissions kind of making not a comeback, but I think that seems to be the next big thing for automatics over here. Torque converters, some people are still betting big on that. So just from a technology standpoint, where is Ford really focusing its energies on the transmission front? Yeah.
So we've got world-class transmissions on both sides, and world-class planetary transmissions, as well as power clutch transmissions, power shift transmissions. As far as the future goes, torque converters are getting much more efficient than they used to be, and the power clutch transmissions are getting much more smoother than they used to be. So we are continuously looking at all the technologies to bring the best fuel efficiency and best cost for our customers. So
Right.
it's a wide open, lots of technologies available, and the question is going to be which one works the best.
Right. And last question, coming to the Indian market, the Indian customer, and let's say developing cars specifically bespoke for the market, what's really been the toughest bit over here? Is it fuel consumption? Is it cost? What's really been the lessons when you kind of make a car for an Indian consumer, and is it wildly different from anywhere else in the world? Yeah.
What we've discovered is that, let's start with the exterior. The sense of design aesthetic, the sense of proportion is the same around the world. Good proportion is good proportion. in Brazil or in South America or anywhere else in South America or Europe or United States. We as human beings are quite tuned into what proportion looks good and what doesn't around the world. So that's really good for manufacturers like us because we don't necessarily have to design, from a design perspective, provide different proportions for different markets. And also in terms of surface language, when it's a good design, it's a good design. And the tastes are converging. So Ecosport is a great example. It's a wild success in Brazil, in China, in India, in very, very diverse markets. So given that commonality, we are going to design products that are global products. But in designing those global products, we have to pay a lot of attention to local needs. So we have engineers from India and from China and other markets that are embedded inside the teams that are designing these products, the lead teams. And they're a bridge, they provide the input from the market, they are a bridge to our supply base, to our manufacturing. And we pay a lot of attention to that input. So you mentioned fuel. So petrol in India is different, the composition of petrol in India is different than composition of petrol in China or in Brazil. In Brazil, it is E85. So our powertrains have to work with all those fuels, all those compositions of different fuels. So we take that input and they're robust to all of those fuels. That's just one example. The driving conditions and driving styles are different in India versus China versus South America. So our platforms are flexible enough where we can tune the suspensions for those particular customers' needs. Tastes in fabrics are quite different. Indian customers are a bit more adventurous with color. Some of the other countries are more conservative. But we can tailor those for Indian tastes. So it is a global car, but it has to meet all the local needs while we design that global car. And I think we've demonstrated that with the Ecosport.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.